Hello everyone. Today I'm going to do a tier list of all the extra turn spells in Magic. I haven't really done a tier list before, so this might not go as well as I think, but we'll try to get through it and see what we can do. So first off, I'm going to start with the best extra turn spell, which is Time Walk, 2 mana, take an extra turn. Uh, it's pretty much the basis of an extra turn spell being good, you know. You get it out early and you can just keep replaying it, and it doesn't exile, it goes to your graveyard so you can get it back with other cards like Snapcaster Mage or anything like that. So that can just go on and on and on. And then we have 3 cards that all do the same thing, and I would probably put these at uh, so they're 5 mana, take an extra turn. They don't exile, they don't do anything else. And I'll get them all out here real quick. And then I should have the 5th one right here. There you go. So all of them, I think either A or B. Um, they're good, like, middle ground between the two. Um, they're a little bit more expensive. They don't really do anything. But you can get them back from the graveyard. So, um, to be honest, yeah, I'd probably want more of these in my deck, so I probably will put these at A, just because of how good they are. They're just quick and efficient, and they can be brought back from the graveyard. Um, we'll talk about Time Stretch, which I'm going to put at B because it is 10 mana, and it does let you take 2 extra turns. Um, the only problem is it is 10 mana, and that's twice as much as the rest of these, which obviously you get twice the effect. The only problem is it does take a while to get there. It's a good card to discard if you're going to cast your graveyard for free, like Mizzix's Mastery, or if you have another card like it's one of the Deluges. You cast 3 copies of it because I have done it on this before and taken 6 extra turns, and that just wins the game. Um, Sadly, we can't zoom in on these, so I'll have to just explain the text. And I do play a lot of extra turn cards, so I will know a little bit more about these. So I'll probably put this at B as well because it is 6 mana. Take an extra turn, but it does have buyback. And so the buyback cost is a little too much for it to be worth it. It is sacrifice 3 islands. The only thing about it is, you know, you have to keep sacrificing 3 islands if you want to buy back. So if you have a way to reanimate those lands or you have a specific thing, this is good. But otherwise, it's just 1 more mana for an extra turn. And for the most part, every single time I've played this, I've on one occasion done it because I was so far ahead. I already had like 20 islands on the field, and I just wanted to take extra turns to close out the game. Um, so I'm going to put this one at C tier. This one's a 3 mana extra turn, but it does have a downside of you do not untap during your untap step. So while the only problem about it, I don't know, I probably would put it, uh, actually I'll probably put it at D um, because you do not untap, it's only good in specifically Planeswalker decks, and so it's a very specific card for a specific deck. Um, and I don't know, I don't see it being played very often. Um, so this is a mono black extra turn. I don't even remember the name because I never play it. I'm gonna put it in F tier. So it's 4 black. You take an extra turn after this one. I don't remember if it exiles or not, but it doesn't really matter because it's always gonna get countered unless a player pays half their life total to counter it. So um, an opponent, you play this for 4 mana. An opponent pays half their life total, and then you don't take an extra turn. It just basically makes that opponent pay half their life, and everyone else at the table looks at you now and assumes you're probably gonna do something broken because you wanted an extra turn. And then Seedtime is another F because it's 2 mana for an instant, which I don't know why it had to be an instant. Um, because I get like because you can only cast it during your turn, so I guess so if you want to do it during your upkeep, main phase or end step, and you can only cast it if a player has cast a blue spell during your turn. So this is a good anti-blue hate, but you have to assume the blue player is going after you and have this card up. And also still have that 2 mana after, like maybe they counter your spell, but you'd also have to still have the 2 mana to play an extra turn spell, which is nice and all, but I think you'd rather just resolve your spell than take an extra turn because that just kind of undoes the whole point of the extra turn. Um, so we have Expropriate. I'm going to put Expropriate in A tier because if you cast this, you are probably going to win the game. See, everyone gets to vote. It's Council Dilemma. And for every vote, you either get to vote for time or money, and each player gets to do that. So for every time vote, you get an extra turn. For every money vote, I think it is, uh, you get to take a permanent that player controls. So how it works is you cast this for 9 mana. You say, okay, I'm going to take time because you wouldn't take money because you control your own permanents, obviously. And then your opponents each usually choose money as well. So you get 3 permanents of your opponents. You get to choose as well, and you take an extra turn after that one. And that's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is 9 mana. You take 4 extra turns. And at the point that you take 4 extra turns and your opponents don't do anything during those turns and couldn't, like if they were going to do anything, they were probably going to counter expropriate. The only thing that, like, if it was, it could be S tier actually, if um, it didn't have the fact that it exiles. So exiling is a big thing, but it is an A tier just because it does win you the game. We're going to go to this one. Can't really remember the name of it, but I'm probably putting it at C tier because it's like 9 mana, or I think it's 11 mana. It's 8 and like 3 blue. But it has Delve. So you can exile cards from your library to pay 1 of the 8 mana that it costs, the 8 colorless mana. So you can actually cast this for like 3 if you exile 8 cards. Uh, it's pretty late in the game by the time you do that, unless you have like a deck that really loves to throw cards into the graveyard. I would say it's all right. It's not the greatest. I wish it was a little cheaper maybe, but at the same, and it also exiles, so it's kind of an annoying effect with it exiling. For the most part, usually when I'm playing my mono blue extra turn deck, I'm usually discarding this and then casting it from graveyard. But it's still all right. It's not terrible. Another, I would say probably a B tier because you do have to play it in Commander as well. Is Karn's Temporal Sundering. Oh, it's Temporal Trespass, I think it's called. But this one's the last one I'm talking about. This one's called Karn's Temporal Sundering. So if you have your commander, you can take an extra turn after this one. It does exile, but you do get to bounce a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So this is a pretty good one. Definitely one that is cheaper costed and like financially, it's like a couple bucks. And then you do get to bounce a permanent and take an extra turn. So it's a more fun extra turn because it actually does something to the game state rather than just sitting there. Sort of like a expropriate, but not in the same like level. It's 6 mana, um, but it does do 6 mana worth of stuff. I mean, you get an extra turn, which is 5 mana. You get to bounce a permanent, which could be like 1 mana or so. Um, so it's pretty good. I like it, and I've used it before to bounce my own permanents just to get rid of stuff. So then we have Temporal Manipulation. This is probably also going to be a B tier because of the fact that you can miracle it. So what I've done before is I've casted a spell to search this on top of my library. Can't remember the name of the tutor, but the blue tutor that searches for an instant or sorcery. You put that on top of your library. You pay that cost to take 2 mana to take an extra turn. Um, and you can keep going from there. I mean, it's sometimes just a good ramp card in some senses. And since you do draw your card for a turn, uh, it kind of goes against the whole like disadvantage of having to cast it from the top of your library. And sometimes you just cast it for 2 mana on turn like 7, and you have like all this mana open to do so much more, and you've taken an extra turn. So that's usually pretty worth it. It does exile itself when you cast it, and then it is 7 mana normally, but casting it for 2 mana does feel a lot better than anything else. Um, so we have another 6 mana extra turn spell. It's going to be in the C tier because it does exile itself. Um, it has an awakening cost of like 9 or something like that, where you can put 4 counters or something like that, or 6 counters on a land. But I've never done it for that because you'd probably rather just use that mana on your extra turn rather than um, doing something else. So here's another F tier because no one's ever going to let you have this one. So it's 4 mana for an extra turn spell. That sounds great, right? Another 4 mana one. Um, it has Will of the Council. Everyone votes for two things. I can't remember which one, but you either get an extra turn, or if money gets more, I think it's time or money again or something like that. But uh, you either get to draw 3 cards for 4 mana, which is really bad in blue, and it's a sorcery, or you get to take an extra turn after this one. And everyone's probably just going to give you the 3 cards because they don't want you to have an extra turn. And the tied one, like so, if you're tied, you only get the card draw. So it's not even that good. You would need 2 other people at the table of a 4-person table to let you have the extra turn. And that's probably never going to happen unless you're like so far behind. There's no way that letting you catch up would do anything. Like they'd probably rather just let you take the extra turn would be worse than drawing the 3 cards. So no matter what, you're going to get the worst option of the bunch there. So Nexus F8 is another B tier. It's 7 mana. You take an extra turn, and while it doesn't go into your graveyard, it does shuffle into your library. This is really good if you get milled out, if you are playing a deck that draws a bunch of cards, but you don't want to do a self-win con, or maybe you milled your self-win con, so you can just keep casting Nexus F8 until you like ping everyone for 1 or something like that. It's really great in standard. It's just a good extra turn spell in general. Um, I just enjoyed Nexus of Fate. Just a good extra turn. I mean, there's not much else. So I'm gonna almost be finished with. Oh, I went through some of the non-blue ones, but they were so bad I had to mention them. Uh, this one is 8 mana. Very similar. I'm gonna put it at C tier because it's all right. Um, it's 8 mana. Take an extra turn after this one, but you shuffle into your library when you cast it. Um, I would say that it's all right. It's 8 mana for an extra turn spell, and you can't really get it back from your graveyard. You can cast it from your graveyard, unlike Nexus of Fate, but it's still an 8 mana extra turn spell, which is a little bit much. So I'm probably gonna put Auron's Epiphany in A tier because you can foretell it for 2 mana. People will think you just have a counter spell sometimes in Magic until you reveal you're an extra turn deck. Um, you make 2 blockers, which is really important, 2/1/1 birds, and you take an extra turn, but you do have to exile it. Only reason why it's here though is because not only is this good in one-on-one, but it's also really good in multiplayer. Where if you're playing planeswalkers you want to defend, or you're playing like a tokeny deck, I guess somehow, or a bird deck. I've actually seen people play this in bird tribal. They use the excuse, oh well, it makes birds, so bird tribal. But I mean, it's a good excuse because it does work. Um, so I do like Auron's Epiphany. I think that's a good card in general. Um, but so you can do turn 2, you foretell it, and then turn 6 you can play it for an extra turn, and then have some blockers and maybe even attackers if you need to do the last bit of damage. Um, so we're probably gonna put this one in D tier as well. So it's 4 mana. It has an ability that you create X 1/1s for the amount of damage you dealt to your opponents this turn, but you have a prowl cost for 6 mana where you take an extra turn if you dealt damage with a rogue. So this is very specific, and that's why I put it at D with what is this one? The one where you don't untap. I can't remember its name right now, but because of the fact that it's so specific that you can't really play it in like other decks for the most part, you'd have to have a rogue commander or a shapeshifter commander for it to be um, something insane. Um, so we have 3 of them here. I'm gonna put them all in D tier as well because of the fact that there is uh, decks that can use this very well. And I'm also gonna put so Chance for Glory, like Final Fortune, Warrior's Oath. I'm not like I think that one actually is Warrior's Oath, and then I don't remember what this one's called. But all four of these basically say the same thing, except for Chance for Glory. I think has like Indestructible or something else that's kind of nice, but not really like that important in the overall game. Um, so all four of them, you take an extra turn, but you lose the beginning of the next turn's end step. So if you have a card that lets you end your turn before that happens, or some way to like manipulate it so you don't lose the game, these cards are great because this one is 3 mana, one white and red. But the rest of these are double red, so they're similar to Time Walk and their instants. The only thing is, you do want to be careful because this will kill you. That's the only reason why it's in D, because even if you have that strategy, it's very risky. If it was like very good in that strategy, it'd probably be C tier, but it is super risky because of the fact that you don't get to untap. So we have another one. I'm going to put this at D tier because you could manipulate the coin flip. So it's 3 mana, 1 red, blue, and then you flip a coin. If you win the flip, you take an extra turn. So sometimes this is just a 3 mana do nothing spell, and that feels bad. Sometimes it's a 3 mana take an extra turn spell, and that feels great. But it's not very consistent, and that's the only problem. So I'm gonna put this one at C tier because it is 3 mana. It's very similar to Chance for Glory in that you take an extra turn and then you lose the game at the end step, or the next end step, which would be your extra turn. But the only difference between this one is you can cast it for 7 mana. I think it's 4 blue, blue, red. Um, and then instead of the regular effect, it has Cleave, which is a new mechanic in the new set, which is going to be you take an extra turn, but you lose at the end step. Or sorry, you just take an extra turn. Sorry, the regular cost is you lose the end step, but the extra turn is um, that, of course. So that is kind of most of the extra turns. I didn't include the ones that weren't extra turns just because of the fact that those, or not extra turns, but the ones that weren't spells, because I just wanted to get instants and sorceries, because that's kind of the heart of what an extra turn spell is. It's a spell. It's not a permanent. It's not going to keep coming back or keep giving you extra turns. Um, because a lot of those, like depending on the deck, could just be infinite turns. Whereas these are mostly just, I cast it once, take an extra turn, and it's done. So that's the tier list for the most part. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, everything. I don't really know. Just do what you want. I appreciate it if you do. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good one. Bye.